We are so excited to have our next guest on here from the movie Robert the Bruce. And this is Seoras Wallace with us today.
Hi.
And, you know, I've seen a lot of your work over the years. I am such a huge fan. And I didn't even realize, though, until I really delved into your career and just researching everything that you've done. You have such an amazing body of work of things that you have done, that maybe things that you've done that maybe people haven't realized it was your work. So you're not only an actor, you're a weapons expert, and you've done a lot of different things. You're a historical information that you have given to different people for their films. There's just so much to talk about. But in addition to working on Robert the Bruce, you also worked on Rob Roy, Braveheart, Highlander, Outlander, pretty much every major Scottish film and TV show in our lifetimes.
Yeah. Aye. But I did it as a journeyman.
As a journey?
Yes. Aye. Where I come from in Scotland, you're brought up with this natural history, heritage history and cultural history. Very, very strong. So I come from a very strong clan family, you know. And obviously we're brought up to fight as well with anything we can get our hands on. So it's quite a natural progression for me, if you like. And I've been in the acting clan chief of Clan Wallace for nearly 30 years. So the information passed down through the generations, coinciding with the kind of release of information in today's information age, gave me a greater picture of who my family were, how our history was, and how it's associated with other cultures even around the world. So I've just taken these things in my stride. So if somebody says, can you do something? I'll go yes, and I worry about the negatives later.
That's a great philosophy to have.
It works.
Absolutely. And then what's the industry in Scotland like? And why perhaps more productions? Why should they consider going to Scotland to film?
Well, the industry in Scotland, I mean, the talent is here. I mean, the talent's not here, actually. It goes abroad. I mean, when I was going to Montana to film the Bruce, we were meeting American stuntmen in the airport who was coming to Scotland to work on Outlander. And the crazy thing is, in Scotland, and I mean, I'm a weapons expert. I specialise in Scottish weaponry, but other weaponry. But the British establishment is not keen on Scottish films getting made. That's not a political point of view. That's an observation. You know, for example, I was a world champion for 3 years on the trot with weaponry, and yet I couldn't get to fight on Outlander because I wasn't registered with the London School of Stunts. You know, that's like saying to you, you can't do broadcast unless you've been to the Toronto School of Broadcasting. It doesn't make sense, you know. So
yeah, no,
I've just got on with it. I've just got on with it, like, you know.
So how did you get to be the weapons coordinator and stunt coordinator on the Outlander?
Well, it was actually, I had a casting crew. I've got two casting agencies. One is for general casting, and the other one is specifically for fight crews, because I've got some of the best fight crews in Europe, and I bring them in from everywhere, you know, whether it's even from as far afield as Russia and Denmark, Sweden, you know. I bring the best guys in, male or female, to do the job. And a lot of people in the industry try and subvert the UK policy, you know, and they bring me on that way. You know, so I maybe need to go to Ireland to get an Irish address to work in Scotland. It's crazy and it's stupid, it's ludicrous, but it's true. You
Wow.
know, it's crazy. And yet there's so many people want to make Scottish influenced films.
Yeah.
And I think we're very lucky for such a small nation. The Scottish diaspora around the world is like, I think, like 100 million plus, you know. But for such a small country, there's such an interest and a homely feel when people watch a Scottish film or they hear Scottish accents. This is what I've found, you know, and I'm trying to maintain that heartfelt generosity that people offer to us, you know.
I think people are truly very inspired by Scotland, not only by its history, by just the ingenuity of the people, the innovation that comes out of Scotland, and just the hard-working work ethic of everyone coming from Scotland in many different industries. But I do think that people are intrinsically inspired by the history of Scotland around the world.
It's a two-way street actually, and a lot of people don't see that when they say such respectful things about me and my people and my culture. But a lot of people don't realise that it's a mirror reflection of themselves. You know, it's when I was writing the Wallace books, for example. A lot of people, the test readers, were saying, "Seoras, this is true. I've googled this and it's true." And I went, "No, it's fiction," because I don't want to get caught up in a conspiracy theorist situation. You know. What I found with the likes of Wallace, Braveheart the movie, for example, I got so many phone calls and contacts from around the world. And what it was, take away the tartan and the Scottishness, and it's a human story. And it doesn't matter whether you're black, white, green, yellow, you know. It's this relationship with some sort of struggle that is timeless. It's even going on today, the same type of struggle.
How did you get involved with this film and the making of the Robert the Bruce?
I paid him a lot of money. No, I got a phone call from somebody. It's quite a lot of people in the film industry had been inspired by Braveheart and then joined the film industry. And years later, they become directors or they become this. And if there's some association, it's kind of them to contact me. So the director, Richard Gray, he phoned me. He emailed me to say we're working on this movie called The Bruce, but they couldn't really film it in Scotland. So they asked me if they could film it in Montana. So with my ethos to say yes first and worry later, I said yes. You know. But then they got the producer, Carter Bohm, and he contacted me with Skype. They're such really nice people, really genuine people. And I thought, no, I want to make this work. So they asked me if we could film it in Montana. And I said, well, you need to send me pictures and to see the landscape. So they sent me loads of pictures. But in the meantime, I studied the rock formations of Scotland and North America. And it's the same type of Silurian rock. It's the same type of structure as the west coast of Scotland. And I went, well, that's good. You know? So they sent me the pictures. They sent me the first pictures through. And I'd actually thought they'd sent me pictures of the west coast of Scotland. Actual Bruce country. It looked identical. So then I was Skyping again with Carter and Richie. And they said, what do you think? And I went, I think it's perfect. I think we can do this. And Carter went, the movie's on. And I didn't realise that it hinged on my reply whether this movie was going to get made or not. And Carter acknowledged that, and I thank him for that, to have the faith to decide to spend a few $1 million on the say-so of a wee fella from Scotland. You know? So, great guys. And so that created a lot of employment, it created a lot of interest, and it's created a lot of... The film takes on its own life, it begins its own journey. And it's been fantastic. I really honour those guys. Look forward to working with them again.
Oh, that's fantastic. And, you know, watching the film, it looked like there were some very, very cold days on set. So what was that like filming in Montana, and especially as it doubled for Scotland? And how did that all work together?
Well, I've got to say, I mean, I've worked on some amazing films, you know, like Saving Private Ryan. I've done a lot of these top films. And I've got to say, the top of the people in the industry, whether it's Mel Gibson, whether it's Russell Crowe, Sean Connery, they're all earthy people. and it's the people on the many people on the way up are the ones you can't work with,
Mm.
you know, because they think they are something. But the top people don't need to prove anything, and they're so earthy. But I found the entire crew in Montana was one of the best crews I've ever worked with, and I want to work with them again. So it didn't it didn't matter how cold it was. I mean, there was only one day it was hot, horribly cold. We had to go up the mountains on the horses, and it was minus 19 or 20 at the bottom. So we had to go up, and we had to ride along this kind of precipice, you know, for a long shot. But when we got to the top, the wind chill factor I think was minus 32.
Ah!
Right. So as soon as I hit the top, my beard just froze. Your fingers froze to the leathers. I turned my horse round so as the wind was going up its backside.
Oh
I thought,
no.
if the horse is going to bolt, I didn't want to bolt over the edge to my death. I wanted to bolt back down where I came from. But working with that kind of team, it doesn't matter what the weather is.
Mm.
You're a team, and I've got to say the children on the film were exceptional. They inspired the adults. We couldn't let the kids down.
Mm.
So even when they didn't notice that we were crying with the cold, you know, the teamwork of the entire crew, I've got to honour those guys again. You know, that's what made it possible.
Mm.
That's amazing. And just hearing some of the stories from some of the other cast members as well, it seems like this was truly a one of a kind experience for all of you. And I understand that you have a great love of some of the most amusing places in Scotland that I also love. Glencoe, the Sky. So I just, just looking at those different places every year, I try to go to those places. And then also Montana. Just so excited that you feel like, that there's enough similarities to be able to shoot in both places. And
Yeah.
this film.
Oh yeah, I mean, I lived in Oklahoma for a wee while. I had a ranch in a place called Sapulpa near Tulsa, and it was amazing when I was walking in that area. That was quite like Galloway in Scotland as well. So there's quite a lot of places. And the funny thing about being in Montana and in Tulsa, I recognised a lot of the facial characteristics of descendants who had moved there. They had these Scottish characteristics, you know, and I could see the faces, and I could recognise them with people back home. You know, it was quite a privilege, and we used to laugh, like, you know, because we could pinpoint people and really identify their families back in Scotland, and they wouldn't realise it unless we started speaking to them, and 9 times out of 10 we were right. It was quite fascinating to do that.
Wow, that's fantastic. You've lived here in the States, so you understand there's such an enthusiasm, I feel like, especially for Scotland. I mean, we have over 124 Highland Games throughout this country each and every year, and people just really love to celebrate their Scottish heritage here in the States.
Aye.
It's true. And also, so We Were Soldiers was just released this year. So tell us about this film.
Well, I worked in a few films with Mel Gibson and Randall Wallace, and I play the bagpipes very badly, you know. But one of my friends wrote a poem about his grandfather in the First World War, and I could hear it, and I could sense and I could visualise the scene. His grandfather gave up his life to protect his men to get back. So I played the bagpipes to this poem, and it became a tune. So I sent it to, I'm calling Cousin Randall and Cousin Mel, you know. So I sent it to them because they just liked the music. And then one day I got a phone call, and it's like, this is it was Mel Gibson, right? Seoras, I said, "Hi Mel, what is it?" He says, "I'm listening to this tune, it's fantastic." He says, "I'd like to use it as the soundtrack for my next film." I go, and my philosophy is, aye, no problem. But what was really fascinating about that tune for that film, the Vietnam Veterans Association, the Australian Veterans Association, the Canadians, anybody that had been in Vietnam, it was colossal effect on them. And the amount of people that contacted me over the years, you know, the veterans associations, and it's now one of the, I think the top 3 favourite tune, if I can say that, as a memorial tune to returning soldiers who've lost their lives, you know, in many, many different countries. So, funny enough, one of the books I've written is I've written the backstory to who Sergeant Mackenzie was, you know, and I've taken 10 individuals for different nations, black, white, Chinese, and I've brought them together in one story in the book Sergeant Mackenzie. And I've now got an agent in America called Alessia Malocci, Little Studio Films, and she's handling the Wallace TV series because my books are going to get made into a TV series. And Sergeant Mackenzie, we're not sure whether to make it into a feature film. And this is a kind of spin-off to Once We Were Soldiers, you know, because it's the backstory and so many people was who was Sergeant Mackenzie. So I've written about who he actually was. Maybe I should get my rep, Alessia to send you the details about that.
Please.
Because, I mean, I've got the characters in that come from that. It's a Chinese guy, 2 black Americans, 2 females who dressed as men to fight in the First World War, and a German spy who was a Scottish. No, well, she was engaged to every one of them had a Scottish connection. The Chinese guy married a Scottish girl when he was wounded. The 2 black guys married 2 Scottish girls. The 2 women who rode about dressed as men were Scottish. And the German nurse who was awarded the Iron Cross with the Kaiser, her fiance came from Dundee, and she was a spy for the British. So I brought all their stories together to tell Sergeant Mackenzie's story. That's the big spin-off from Once We Were Soldiers. Does that make sense?
That sounds truly amazing. I cannot wait to read or watch about more of this. And I would personally love, as a piper, to have some of that music. If you don't mind sharing it, I would love to be able to.
Have you heard the tune, Sergeant? Have you heard the tune in Once We Were Soldiers?
I have not yet heard that tune. I'm going to look it up. I didn't know that you had a connection to that tune, or that you even played some pipes. Matter. I had no idea.
No, do your research, woman.
Oh, fantastic! No, I didn't realize that was you. I would have for sure, and I will listen to that. But I would love to be able to play.
I produced it for the film. But what you want to do is, or I can actually send you the link on YouTube. It's if you put Seoras Wallace, Sergeant Mackenzie, you'll hear the pipe tune that I put to that song. And you'll see all the characters that's in my book that hopefully will be for this, either TV series or a feature.
Well, maybe we'll have our marketing guru, Diana, play that today live for our audience. That would be fantastic.
Ah, yeah, that would be. If they like the bagpipes.
Of course, who doesn't like the bagpipes?
English folk.
What can you tell us about the Golden Lion in Stirling? We were told to ask you about the Golden Lion. Like there's a story there.
Well, it's frequented by a lot of friendly women and local natives, and it's a good place to be in Stirling. I think it's 1750 when the pub was first opened. And like the likes of Robbie Burns, and I think he wrote a poem on the window. So it's got a lot of famous characters have been in it, including Carter and Ritchie. Do you know? So I can't say too much about it because there'll be a lot of divorces back home in America.
I don't know. Ritchie said we should ask you about that, so we thought we would.
It's a great wee place to meet if you're ever in Stirling.
Oh. Good to know. Well, Cindi and I will be there in September, so we will make that a stop.
That's brilliant. Well, I hope I'm here to see you.
Me too.
Aye.
Cool. Well, Seoras, thank you so very, very much for coming on with us. You are an absolute gem, and I could sit down and drink whiskey with you all day and just pick your brain and listen.
Yeah, and I look forward to a duet with Sergeant Mackenzie.
Yes, it'll be wonderful. And we look forward to hopefully meeting you in person when we are in Scotland. And just want to go ahead and let everyone know to go ahead and tune in to your projects and what you're doing. And how do people find you and take a look at your projects? Do you have, where can they go to connect with you?
Well, I'm really quite a private person, to be honest. You know, I never wanted to be famous. I've only wanted to be rich. I'm Scottish. You know, so apart from my Facebook stuff, you know, the social media things, I've nothing that really promotes me or what I do, like, you know.
Well, we will try to follow you and update people as frequently as we can and get back together with you. We
Aye.
Scotweek here in LA, and it's entirely a celebration of the Scottish culture and history and all things Scottish. And so we would very much like to be connected and stay connected and
Yeah.
keep up with you and watch what you're doing and be supportive.
And likewise, because if I get your information, then I'll put it on all our information. Because I've got social media platforms where I've got a few thousand people on different things. So I'll definitely promote yourselves as well, because I think it's an amazing thing you're doing. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Seoras. It's very kind.
Thank you very much. We adore you, and it's so wonderful to have you and be able to talk to you.
Okay, thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.